Hi everyone, welcome back to the English videos. I'm just looking at the comments that a lot of you have put in the previous video that I have made, right? A lot of you are asking for 3 marks and 4 marks in the video. That's great. And I'm also seeing a lot of you are asking for notes, PDF. I think we are going to work on it. And a few of you have also given great feedback in terms of how it is actually helping you progress through the revisions that you're doing, right? So that's great comments. And I think it is fantastic that all of you are actually following the channel and you're watching the videos and you're learning in the process. So thank you so much for all the support that you have given us for the last video, and keeping that as motivation and helping you reach great successes in the English exam. I'm back again to do another video for the 3 markers in your board exam that is coming up in the next month. So without further ado, let's begin the video. So like I said, what we will be doing today is we are actually going to be covering the 3 markers from the literature section. Now this is a follow up of what we were doing in the previous video, that is the 2 mark questions, right? So those who don't have access to the 2 markers, go back, look at the video that I've uploaded in the a few days ago, and I think that should help you with your 2 marks as well. Moving on to the 3 marks now. So how I'm going to do this is, as you're aware, there are 6 questions that you will be getting from the in the board examination, and out of the 6 questions you are supposed to be attempting 4 questions for your 2 marks, for your 3 marks, right? So now these are the lessons or the poems that you will be covering for your 3 markers, right? So just take a look at what are the different lessons that are there for you to keep in mind when you are preparing for the 3 mark questions. Okay, so we have, like I said, we have 6 lessons, right? So I'm going to start us off by just marking a few things now. So we have When You're Old, we have Heaven If You're Not Here on Earth, we have To a Foot From His Child, we have Sunny Morning, we have the lesson about the forests and Japan and Brazil. So what I will plan to do in this series, or in the 3 mark series, is I'm actually going to do this chapter wise, right? Instead of putting everything in one video, which I think will not be really helpful for all of you, in today's video we'll actually try to cover the 3 easy questions actually, which comes from the 3 poems, right? So what we'll do today is I'm going to show you a little bit about the possible questions that you will get in When You're Old, the possible questions that you will get from Heaven If You're Not Here on Earth, and the possible questions that you will get from To a Foot From Its Child. And because all of you asked for PDF, what I have actually done is I've looked at the key answers that the board has released in the last few years. I have put down a simplified version of it for you, which will be easy for you to go through. So in this video, as I go through the 3 different poems, I'm actually going to show you what is the exemplar way of writing this answer, what are the keywords that you need to keep in mind, and what is important for you to focus on when it comes to 3 markers, and which will help you get that 12 marks that you were looking for. So my first suggestion to all of you, those who are preparing for the exam, is I request you to actually attempt questions from all these 3 poems, because you will get easily 9 marks from this itself, right? And then we'll have to choose between one of these 3 lessons, which I will do in another video, because of course the number of questions from these lessons are quite high, right? So in this video I will touch base on these 3 poems, and that's what will help you get 9 marks out of 12. Okay, the first one I will cover right now is When You're Old, right? So now in When You're Old, there are 2 possible questions that you might get. The first question focuses on the love that the poet had for his beloved. Okay, so the whole poem, if you have read the poem, actually talks about the poet who's actually wants his beloved to think about the love that he had for her, and he compares the love that he had for her with the others who had love for her, right? So the first question could most probably ask you, that you might probably get, is about this: what's the love that the poet had, and how is it different from the love that others had for her? The second question is, how does the poet convey the message of the poem itself, right? So the poem actually gives us a very clear message. Now what is that message? That should be something that you should be thinking about. Now for both these questions, my suggestion is to write one crisp answer which will actually give you all the 3 marks, right? So what I've done is I've tried to combine both the answers into one solid answer, which will answer both the questions. Okay, so let me show you the answer to these 2 questions. So how I've done this is I've broken it down into introduction and what is the main answer that you would need to write. And like I said, I've actually taken the pain of looking at different key answers, collating everything together and making a small resource for you, which of course we'll be sharing in the Telegram channel as well. So how are you writing this answer, right? So first thing is first, I would always tell to my students that start with a simple introduction. Even if it is a 3 marker or a 4 marker, start with it, right? And this actually attracts the evaluator, and it also tells that you really value what you're writing. So what I've done right now is I've actually written the theme of this poem, right? And the theme of the poem, or the message of this poem, like I said in the second question, revolves around the transient nature of beauty and permanence of love. Now, for those who are finding these words very difficult, don't worry. What is transient nature of beauty? That means the nature of beauty is temporary, right? When I say transient, it means it is temporary in nature, whereas love that you have for somebody will always be permanent. What he's trying to say is that beauty over the course of time will go away. It is not permanent, right? I might be beautiful today, and then after 5 years I will be ugly. I may not be beautiful, I may not be attractive. Whereas the love that I will have for someone will always be permanent, and that will not fade away with beauty. And that is the message of true love, which he's trying to say. So I'm writing these 2 points as this sentence as an introduction, because I'm showing the evaluator that I know the theme of the poem, and the theme of the poem is simple, that it is focusing on the transient nature of beauty and permanence of love. Please remember to write these 2 words, because that will give you those extra marks, which is very, very crucial. Now I have summarized the answer. Like I said, for both the questions you can go ahead and write the same answer itself, because it touch bases on the questions they're asking, right? So how I've started is I've put the first stanza in the poem, and I said that he wants his beloved to sit by the fire when she is old and full of gray hair, right? When she is old, he wants her to sit next to the fire and think about how he loved her and read the book of poems. This could also be asked for a 1 mark question for you in your MCQs. Okay, so I'm just writing here for MCQs to remember. This is where the main answer actually starts. Okay, he wants her to not ignore her. He wants her to not ignore him. Sorry, and highlights the transient nature of beauty and permanence of love. Again, I'm repeating the main idea over here. That is that the poem actually is saying that he wants her to remember that beauty is temporary, whereas love that you have for each other is always permanent. Now I'll get into the key words that the poet uses in the poem, right? And this is very important in English, children. You have to write the key words. You have to write textual words. You cannot write your own interpretations of things, because that shows that you have understood the poem quite well, but you don't remember the actual words that the poet uses, right? So I have used those words here itself. So he says that others were attracted by her youthful beauty and her glad grace. That is, everybody was attracted by her physical beauty itself and the grace that she was showing in her beauty. However, he was the only one who loved her for her pilgrim soul. Pilgrim soul is your key word. This is a word which is used in the poem, right? So remember this. He's the only one. The poet was the only one who actually loved her for her, the beauty of her soul. And that is very important for you to write. That's how it was different, no? So the next section of this answer is his love remains constant. That means his love has always remained the same. No matter how ugly or how beautiful she was, his love was always remaining the same. That is what constant here means. That's a key word. And unconditional, which means to say that it was not dependent on conditions. No, oh, if you do this, I will love you. If you don't do this, I will not love you. So it was unconditional. It was not like that, because he loved her sorrows of her changing face. And this is again a key textual word that is used by the poet, right? What he's saying over here is that every time she was feeling sad, the sorrows of her changing face, even though her face was changing with different emotions, he always loved her. Finally, he urges her to regret her decisions, because she did not choose him, right? She chose someone who loved her only for her physical beauty. So in the end, if you read the last part of the poem, where she has to regret the fact that he has run upon the mountains and he's hiding in the clouds. So it's important for you to write the fact that he wants her to regret for her decisions. And I would always like it if my students write a good conclusion. So when you're writing a good conclusion, a simple thing you can keep in mind is to write this: in conclusion, his love remained constant and permanent. Again, we are highlighting the same points, right? Constant and permanent, and emphasizes that beauty is always transient in nature. I've written the meaning of it. It is not permanent, but love will always remain permanent. So when you write your answer in this manner with very simple English, and when you're conveying the key idea of what the question is asking, the evaluator will give you your 3 marks. The first thing that I want you to remember is do not make spelling mistakes. Words like permanent, transient, right? Try to remember these spellings really well and keep that with you, because when you're writing these spellings, do not make spelling errors. And keep your sentences simple. I'm also going to share this in the tips towards the end. But this much should be able to give you 3 marks from this poem, and you have your 3 marks with you, right? So that's my whole idea. I want to make it easy for you, and that's why we are doing this, right? So with this, we finished the first poem. And how much time it took me, right? It took me only 5 minutes. So all you need is around 15 to 20 minutes. You just need to read it once. You just need to repeatedly read this, understand what the poet is trying to say, and go ahead and write your answer, right? So now let's move on to the second poem today. That is To a Foot from Its Child. Now here there are 2 possible questions with 2 possible answers, right? Now the first question that they can ask you is revolving around the journey or the life experience that the foot experiences in the shoe. That could be the first question that they can ask you. The journey, the state of life of the foot which is there in the shoe. The second question could be, what are the changes that happens to the foot when it is pushed inside the shoe? So there are 2 possible questions. I repeat, one could be the journey and the second could be the changes, right? So for both these answers, you will have to emphasize on certain key words, because the poem is quite big, right? And in that poem, there are certain elements that you need to emphasize and write. So what I have done, again, I have consolidated these answers from the different key answers that the board has released in the past few years, and I have made 2 concise answers which will help you get your 3 marks irrespective of the 2 questions that you get, right? So I think these are the most possible questions that you can get, and let me show you what you can write for it. All right, like I said, for every answer, whether it is a 3 or a 4 mark, it's always important to write a very clear introduction. So what's the introduction here? The poem highlights the journey. This is for the first question, right? The question that focuses on journey. So if it is for this question, you need to highlight the fact that it is about the journey, right? So it highlights the journey of the foot from a dreamy childhood. A childhood which is filled with dreams. When you were young, remember, you had so many dreams, right? So childhood which was filled with dreams, and to the harsh adulthood using foot as a metaphor. He is not directly comparing life to foot, but he is using an indirect comparison. That's why it is a metaphor. So from being a small child to becoming a big adult, the changes that happens, the harsh changes that happens in life is what the poet is trying to say here, right? So that's your introduction. Again, a very solid introduction, just consolidates every single thing that should help you get your marks for your introduction. Now, what's the main answer for the journey section, right? Again, please note, this is not the same answer. You have 2 different answers for both the questions. So now for journey, again, the rough summary is over here. So in the beginning of the poem, the foot dreams of becoming an apple or a butterfly. This is again key textual words. In the beginning, the foot is so innocent, right? It wants to become either an apple or a butterfly. So remember that in mind. But as time passes by, the rough paths of life teaches it that it can neither fly nor can be a fruit. As life goes on, the foot which wants to become a butterfly or an apple realizes that it can no longer be a foot or an apple, because there are so many things that happens in the path of the foot which actually teaches them, right? And in the poem, if you see, they say different obstacles that are there, no? The different hardships that it faces. Obstacle spelling is wrong, great. Some of the obstacles that it faces are ladders, right? Stones. So this is what means by rough path here, okay? So when it travels on these rough path, it actually finds it very difficult to it learns that it's not about flying or being a fruit. It is actually very hard. So that's what you're writing here. That's the journey, right? That's how it is growing into an adult. With all its dreams shattered, meaning broken. Again, you can use similar words, children. It's not that you need to write shattered. You can also write broken, right? So with all its dreams shattered, it is defeated in battle. Again, very important keyword of life, and becomes a prisoner. Where is it becoming a prisoner? It has become a prisoner in the shoe. Okay, so this is your first paragraph of your answer, which is talking about the journey. Now let's move on to the second part of your answer. It's like a blind man. This is again a keyword, who's stuck in a shoe. It takes the forms of eyeless reptiles. Imagine your toes. When you open your shoes and if you look at your toes, it looks like reptiles, no? Very hard, very tired reptiles. So he compares that state to eyeless reptiles. So remember this, that's keyword. I'm underlining and circling this because I want you to write this in your answers. It walks without rest every hour. That means it is so busy that it is always walking every time without any rest. Without rest being the keyword. It learns to become resilient, right? This is what you are inferring from the poem. This is what you are understanding, that even though it is difficult, it is trying to lead its life. That is the quality of being a resilient person, a person who is very strong. So it is trying to become resilient. The foot serves as man's foot or a woman's foot. We don't know whose foot it is. But again, this is what the poet says. It can be a man's foot or a woman's foot. So again, keywords, that's the journey of the foot. It walks up, down, above, below, forward, backward, streets, markets, mines, ministries. These are very important words, right? So it is walking. Imagine your foot every day. What do? You walk up, you walk down, you go to market, you go to mines, you go to ministries, you go to offices, you go backwards, you go frontwards, all of these things, right? And that is the journey that the foot is taking. And slog means work so hard. It works hard a lot without respite, right? This is a spelling error again. Without respite means what? Without any break. It is constantly walking again and again and again without any respite. There's small errors in the spellings, but please ignore that. Finally, the foot stops when the man dies and is sent underground. When will the journey end? When the foot actually dies and it is buried underground, right? So that's the journey. It starts from a small child and then it becomes an adult, but as it becomes an adult, the foot shape itself changes because it is always walking up, down, markets, mines, etc. Right? So that is the journey of the foot, and that's your first question that you can possibly get for 3 marks. Now moving on to the second question. I know I'm going fast, but please feel free to pause at different intervals so that you are able to grasp what I'm saying, because it's very important to get the idea. Right? Now the next question that they can ask you is about the changes that happen in the foot. Now when the foot is asked to go inside the shoe, some changes happen, no? What are those changes is what they're asking you here. Again, the introduction remains the same because you're saying that it is dreamy childhood to a harsh adult life, right? So that's perfectly fine. Go ahead and write the same introduction. Now for your main answer, let's go through it very quickly. In the beginning of the poem, the foot dreams of becoming an apple or a butterfly. Again, the same thing. I am just repeating the same part of the first paragraph of your answer, which I have shared in the previous section itself, right? So go ahead and write it because it is all leading to the changes itself, right? And it's very important to write this part. Now, what's the actual answer? I have made a quick note of it here. In the shoe, the soft nails, the tiny petal toes changes into opaque substances. The nails of a baby, you might have seen, is very soft, and it is like tiny petals in flowers you have seen, no? So that soft petals, toes, now become opaque substances. It becomes hard, right? It is no longer beautiful. It's no longer tiny little cute types. Further, it becomes hard as a horn. Again, very important. You can also use the word quartz over here. That's another word that the poet uses in the poem, right? Later, it grows out of trim and takes the form of eyeless reptiles. We discovered this again in the previous question, right? But here you're elaborating a little. It grows out of trim means you have to constantly keep trimming it, and it's growing very ugly, right? With triangular heads like worms, and it's comparing the foot's heads to the worms that are there. Lastly, it grows calloused and seems to be covered with faint volcanoes of death. It is just becoming so casual that it looks like it is almost about to die, like how you have the volcanoes, right? So again, now in this question, please note there are so many keywords, and it is important that you write those keywords as the way it is, right? So quick suggestions over here is, look at the things that I've underlined over here. Those are your keywords. Keep your sentences simple. That should be more than enough. I've written a quick conclusion also. In conclusion, the poet explains that the foot is defeated in battle. You know, the foot is so tired, it feels like it is defeated in this battle, and it undergoes so many changes throughout its journey in its life, right? So that's how you can end this answer. So I hope you have got the understanding of the two questions. There are totally three possible questions from when you are old and to a foot from its child. Out of the three, you might get two, one from foot and one from when you are old. And I've covered all the possible questions from these two poems. Let's move on to the last poem for this video, which is Heaven If You're Not Here on Earth. Again, this poem, all questions, you can write the same answer as long as you're emphasizing on the key things here, children. So the two possible questions here are, what aspects of nature makes Earth heavenly? Okay, so they're asking very clearly about nature. If they are asking about nature, write about nature. In this poem, there are totally three stanzas. The first stanza that Kuvempu has written talks about heaven, which is created by humans itself. He says that heaven is within human beings only. The second stanza actually talks about heaven is present in nature. And the third stanza talks about how poets can create heaven on nature. This is what the poet is actually trying to say in the three stanzas, right? If you are able to know this, the first question they're actually asking you to write about nature. That's the second stanza. Now the second question that they're asking over here is, how does the poet create heaven on earth? You can write an entire summary of it highlighting the third stanza. That is, how does the poet create heaven on earth? That section you can highlight the most. So what I'm trying to say is, if you write the concised summary highlighting the keywords that is associated with the question, you will get your 3 marks. Now what are those keywords, you might be asking? I'll tell you very quickly about that in the next section, which is here. So again, like I said, always write a small introduction. Even if it is 2 lines, it's perfect, but write it clear and crisp, right? So the introduction could be, the poem outlines that heaven is not a separate entity. It is not separate. Heaven is there within us, right? So it's not separate. And it can, and one person and anyone can witness heavenly bliss on earth. You can witness this heavenly bliss on earth itself. If you cannot remember the word bliss, one can witness heaven on earth could also be fine. Now what's the main answer, right? So the main answer, of course, please in your exam don't write these headings, just go ahead and write your actual answer itself. So what's the main answer here? The poet starts off by saying that humans with divine qualities can become gods and nymphs. He says that humans already have divine qualities in themselves. That means they are only gods, and you don't need to wait for God and angels. Nymphs here means angels, right? So he's saying that we only should consider ourselves to be God and angels, and we should say that we only are a replica of heaven. And then he says that humans can themselves be heaven on earth. That's the first part that you should write. Now the second part, this is the main part, which talks about the nature section. Okay, so if they ask you about nature, write this, and write this with the next set with a very concise conclusion. That should be more than enough. So what is he saying about nature? Further, use linkers, children, because this shows that there is coherence in your answer. That means there is logic, there is flow to your answer. So further, the poet says that heaven includes all beautiful things, including the beauty of nature. So he says that in nature itself there is heaven, right? That's what you're trying to say here. Now what are those things? These are your keywords, so very, very important. Please remember these words. The roaring streams. Streams are small rivers and they're making a roaring sound, like how a lion roars, right? Then rolling surf on the edge of the waves. Imagine ocean. In the ocean there are waves, right? And they are rolling always. You might have seen animated videos where they show that waves are rolling like this. I'm very bad with drawing, so please do ignore it. But what he's trying to say is that heaven is there in the roaring streams, that is the streams which are making loud noises, and it is also present in the rolling surf at the edge of the waves. He also says that heaven is present on the tender sunshine which is falling on verdant gardens. Tender is very gentle, very simple, very basic form of sunlight which is forming, very innocent, very tender, very soft form of sunshine, which is actually falling on lush green gardens, right? So here verdant, think about it as green and beautiful gardens, right? So that when you imagine that imagery, right? So when you imagine the sun rays falling on beautiful gardens, you will think that itself is heaven, right? So that's what he's trying to say here. The gentle sun, all of these things makes heaven on earth. So this is the nature aspect. You have four key things to remember here: the roaring streams, rolling surf, tender sunshine on verdant gardens, and the gentle sun. All of these things are present in nature, which will make heaven on earth also. Now, how do you end this answer? I could say just add these points, which will make your answer foolproof, and you will get your 3 marks, right? Additionally, the poet says that the splendor of harvest and moonlight lies all over the earth. So when you're growing crops, you see beautiful harvest and all of those things. That beauty of it and the moonlight that is falling all over it, that also creates heaven on earth. And lastly, this is the third stanza. Lastly, the poet emphasizes that a poet can create heaven on earth by imbibing and spilling the song of nectar, basically beautifying poetry and writing it in the most beautiful manner. When the poet can do it, he can create, or they can create heaven on earth, right? So those are your keywords that you should remember in the last stanza. Splendor of harvest, moonlight are all present on earth, which itself makes it heavenly. Secondly, the poet, any poet can create on earth. According to Kuvempu, he says that poets can create heaven on earth by imbibing and spilling the song of nectar. Those keywords are crucial for you to get your 3 marks. In conclusion, all you can say is that heaven is there everywhere on earth, right? So those are the key things that I want you to remember from heaven if you are not on earth. If you write this much, you will surely get your 3 marks, as long as you are not making spelling mistakes, and as long as you are keeping your sentences very clear, and you are keeping your presentation in the most neatest and the most beautiful manner. And I'm using double superlative here: most neatest and most beautiful, right? So you need to understand that it needs to be that good as a presentation for English. Okay, I will end this video with some of my tips, right? As usual, few tips that I want all of you to keep in mind is to first write crisp and clear answers with simple and easy language, children. You're not trying to write fancy things over here to impress anybody. Of course, you need to impress your evaluators, but you should convey the idea that you're trying to convey through your answers, right? So please keep your language crisp, clear. Don't try to write fancy things which you don't know the spellings of, you don't know the grammatical structure of the sentence. I would say refrain from taking risks unnecessarily, which will simply cause deduction of marks, right? So that's the first tip that I would say. The second thing is my most important thing, which I keep telling my students, is that you need to use clear textual words in your answers. In literature, it is very important to use actual words that are used or quoted in the textbook. So please use appropriate textual evidences. I think the answers that I've given you has a lot of textual words which is appropriate, which matches the poems that we have in the textbook, right? So please do keep that in mind. This is just important for you to know. Underline your keywords. Take that extra 1 minute to just underline all the keywords in your answer, because it highlights at the end of the day. And last thing is study smart, children. What I am trying to do for all of you is to get you to study in a smart manner right now, because you have limited time for your English exam preparations, right? And of course, most of the students will also give more importance to core subjects at this point of time. My objective is that you study smart and you reach your goals, that is to get 75, 76 and above in English. And it's not very difficult, as long as you are being strategic and doing it in the right way. So I would just urge you to study smart. And if you're watching this video, I think it is just the first step for you to study smart. So I hope that this has helped you to get your 9 marks. In the next video, we will cover the other 3 lessons. And I will give you my personal suggestion in terms of what are the 4 lessons that you should keep in mind, and 1 extra to just be on the safer side, right? So as out of the 6, if you are thoroughly prepared with 4 and 1 extra lesson, I think you will get your 12 marks really well. So I hope this video has helped you to understand the 3-mark questions. And if you have any other questions, or if you have queries, or if you want resources, please put that in the comment sections, so that we can come back and we can address those things in the next videos. I really hope that you will take your exams English exam seriously, and I really hope that you will use the resources from this video to enhance your marks and get the best percentages that you want to get for yourself. And in the process of this, I hope you will enjoy watching the videos from 10 power 100 Karnataka, because as all my friends who are doing this video are saying, we're working really hard to help all those people out there who can be the best in their examinations, right? So my best wishes with all of you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you feel that this will help any of your 12th grade friends who are taking up the second PUC examination this year, share these videos with them, and I really hope that you will do well in all your examinations. Thank you so much. I'll be back with the next set of questions. Thank you so much.